This is not a portrait of a man at ease. In fact, it's hardly a portrait of a man at all. It looks, after all, more like a picture of a blackboard, and the man just happens to be in front of it. But let's look more closely at this man. At the time of this photo, he was 50 years old and very successful. He had a prestigious job at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, was the author of many academic papers, and even had one of the most groundbreaking theorems of the century named after him. He was considered a genius by his friends and colleagues, including John von Neumann and Albert Einstein. In fact, he was one of Einstein's closest friends, with Einstein once saying that he only went to his office some days just so he could take a walk with his friend to and from their Princeton campus. The man is Kurt Gödel, legendary mathematician, logician, philosopher, and famously the inventor of Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Such a brilliant mind, and, as is often the case, such a troubled mind as well. Brute logic invaded his life. Besides his professional work, it crept into his daily life. He tried to create a detailed proof for the existence of God. When he went for his interview to become a U.S. citizen, he told the interviewer that he had studied the U.S. Constitution in depth and was concerned that there was a loophole that could be exploited to legally create a dictatorship. His loophole was not recorded and has invited intense speculation ever since. Brute logic could also lead to dark places. When he was a student, one of his professors and mentor, Moritz Schlick, was assassinated by a former student, and other professors were mysteriously disappearing due to a Nazi purge. Gödel was not Jewish, and therefore safer than many of his colleagues, but still, as an academic, he was almost certainly being watched by the Nazis, and he developed a sense of paranoia over his safety. After all, it was logical for him to assume that he could be taken next. Even after he fled to the United States in 1939, this paranoia persisted. He had seen too much horror, and it was deeply ingrained in him, so deeply ingrained that it never left him. It even grew. As he got older, he became convinced that someone was trying to poison him. He only ate food that his wife prepared, and when she became sick and had an extended stay in a hospital, he didn't know what to do. He panicked and just refused to eat at all. Tragically, he starved himself to death, weighing only 65 pounds at the time of his death. Now let's turn to the photographer, Arnold Newman. Newman, born and raised in New York City, became known as an environmental portrait artist. As he explained, I didn't just want to make a photograph with some things in the background. The surroundings had to add to the composition and the understanding of the person. He became famous for his portraits of celebrities, artists, and politicians, always choosing something to include in the photo that helped the viewer understand the subject. Perhaps his most famous photograph, for example, is that of the composer Igor Stravinsky, pictured in a corner almost as an afterthought, with the towering lid of a grand piano threatening to devour him. What, then, do we make of this photo of Kurt Gödel? Usually when we see a scholar in front of a blackboard, the blackboard will show the scholar working, perhaps in front of an equation or theory that represents some great success. But in this photo, the blackboard is almost emanating from Gödel's head like a thought bubble, and this thought bubble is blank. I wonder, did Newman choose the blank blackboard or Gödel? Either way, the blackboard is telling us that, despite all his accomplishments, this man sitting here tensely, fingers tightly gripping the chair, nearly surrounded by shadows, is not a man confident that he knows the answers.